All right, so it is 2000 Zoom, so we'll get started. So today we're doing aeromedical 1, 2, and I think it's 3, or it's physiology. Yeah, so we'll get started right away. Um, just a few rules of the classroom. I'm sure you guys have heard it before. You can turn on your cameras if you want. It could affect your video quality. I would keep mine off just so you get the best. Please keep your microphones muted and stuff. And then if you have a question, just raise your hand and I'll call on you and you can answer just so we don't have everyone speaking over each other. You guys follow the cadet code of conduct, then yeah, just raise your hand. You guys all survived the COVID-19 pandemic, so basic video call etiquette. All right, we'll get started. My screen. Well, there we go. So about myself, you're probably wondering who is this guy. So my name is C.I. Doak. I'm a cadet at 883 and 530 Squadron, or I was a cadet. Um, yeah, as you probably don't know where those squadrons are. I'm from the Toronto area, the GTA. They just asked me to fill in for the Northwest Ground School. I did my glider in 2022, which was the first year after COVID. Right after glider, I came to the University of Waterloo to study science and aviation. Right now, I'm a civilian instructor at Wingham Cadet Flying Site, so I get to fly cadets and gliders on the weekend, which is pretty cool. I just finished my CPL flight test, and I'm hoping to start my multi-engine and IFR training soon for my program. And yeah, I hope after graduation to become a flight instructor. Fun fact about me is I get to fly on Canada's first type certified electric aircraft. It's called the Velis Electro. It's a very neat aircraft, and yeah, my university's doing research and stuff with it. Yeah, it's really fun to fly. All right, so we'll get started right away with aeromedicine. If my slide will change slides. Apparently not. There we go. All right, so today we're covering aeromedicine. So um, lectures basically cover how your body deals with flying. Okay. So this class will introduce you to those different physiological factors of flying and that you may need to deal with as a pilot. Okay, so as you guys may know already, a pilot is a person, okay, not a machine. And humans are animals. Okay, we descended from apes, and we're not necessarily designed to go flying. Okay? So there's different factors that we need to consider and deal with. Okay? And the best way to prevent yourself from encountering negative effects due to these factors is to know them and to understand how to deal with them. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, at some point in your career, knowing this information could save your life. So, in this lesson, Air Medicine 1, so we're going to cover hypoxia first. We're going to move into hyperventilation, gas expansion effects, and decompression sickness. Yeah, and if you have a question, just raise your hand or type in the chat and I'll be sure to answer. Okay, so we'll get started right away with hypoxia. So, as humans, we breathe, okay? We breathe quite a lot, and most of the time we don't even realize we're breathing. And it's because the cells of our body, they need oxygen to survive, okay? So the same way that a fire kind of needs oxygen to burn, our cells need oxygen to convert the nutrients into energy, okay? And without this oxygen, our cells can't function properly. So hypoxia is a condition where the cells of the body don't receive the correct oxygen in order to function properly. Okay? So, before I get into the different types of hypoxia, I'd like to talk about sort of the process in which oxygen comes into our body. So, you guys might know some of this already, but oxygen we breathe in through our mouth, it goes to our lungs. Okay? In our lungs, the lungs will sort of transfuse that oxygen into our blood. Okay, and the blood will carry that oxygen through our arteries right to our cells, and then our cells are responsible for taking the oxygen out of the blood and using it. Okay? And then the reverse process, our cells will give the blood CO2, which will then go back and be exhaled through our lungs. Okay? So there are four different types of hypoxia. okay? And they're classified based on where sort of in a process there's a lack of oxygen. Okay, so the first one, there we go. The first one is hypoxic hypoxia. Okay, and this is an issue right at the start of the process. So it's the inefficiency of our lungs to take in the correct amount of oxygen to the bloodstream. Okay? And the usual cause of this is reduced partial pressure of atmospheric oxygen. So, as humans, we're designed to live down here at the surface level with the atmospheric pressure around us. But as we go up in altitude, that pressure sort of decreases. And for the same volume of our lungs, we're getting less oxygen. Okay? And that can cause us to not get the right amount of oxygen and can cause an issue for our cells not getting the oxygen that they need. So that's hypoxic hypoxia. The next is, oh man, there we go. The next is anemic hypoxia. Okay, and this is sort of our oxygen, or sorry, our lungs are taking in the oxygen that they need, but the blood isn't absorbing the oxygen properly. Okay, and this can be due to different causes, such as anemia. So if your family member has anemia, then their blood is not capable of taking in the oxygen in appropriate amounts from the lungs. Okay, and this can cause hypoxia. Can also be caused by low blood volumes. So if you don't have enough blood, then there's not enough blood to take in the oxygen that's needed. Okay, or carbon monoxide poisoning. So what carbon monoxide does is it mimics oxygen and sort of kicks it out of the red blood cells. So it will sort of replace the oxygen, and carbon monoxide can't be used by the cells. So you can encounter hypoxia that way. Okay, and the next one is stagnant hypoxia. So our lungs are getting the oxygen, our blood is getting the oxygen, everything's going good there. But there's an issue with transporting that blood. Okay. So it's defined as reduced oxygenation of the cells due to circulatory impairment. Basically, the blood isn't going around the body properly, and the cells can't get that oxygen. Okay? And this can be caused by cardiovascular disease. So if your heart isn't pumping properly, okay, then the blood can't circulate as it needs. Okay? Or it can be as simple as like wearing a tight watch or like a tight clothing. This is why I don't do up my top button because the shirt is way too tight. I'd start like getting dizzy. And it can also be caused by G forces. So if you pull like some heavy G's, then the oxygen kind of just goes away from your brain and you can black out. And the last type of hypoxia is histotoxic hypoxia. Okay, so everything is going fine in the process. Lungs are getting oxygen, blood's getting oxygen, it's getting transported correctly. But at the last step, the cells are not absorbing the oxygen. Okay? And the main cause of this is chemical interference, which is usually caused by drugs. Okay, so nicotine, alcohol can all cause this histotoxic hypoxia. Okay, so the main thing for you guys to know here is the definition of hypoxia, the four types, okay, know where in the process they occur, and sort of what can cause those four types. And I think there's a question, if I can see the name. Yes, Cadet Singh, go ahead.
So the difference between anemic and histotoxic is that anemic, your red blood cells are just not shaped to absorb that oxygen, and histotoxic is when there's chemical interference that allows oxygen to not bind or carried by your cells. Is that what it is?
So anemic is an issue with your blood absorbing the oxygen. So the oxygen first needs to go to your blood in order to get transported to the cells all around your body. Okay, so anemic is the blood not being able to take the oxygen or not being enough blood to take the oxygen. And then histotoxic is like the end cell itself. So let's say this cell here on my hand isn't taking that oxygen and it's not going to function properly. So that's a difference.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? This is an important slide. Okay. If you do have questions, you can ask later on. So let's get into this stuff. So the central nervous system, such as the eyes and the brain, okay, they're very sensitive to hypoxia. Okay, so our brain, our eyes, they're all made of cells, Okay? And as pilots, we're heavily reliant on these components of our body. And if you're not functioning properly, then bad things can start to happen. Okay? So if the cells in our eyes aren't working properly, we can get reduced visual acuity. At nighttime, especially, we have night vision. And if you fly too high at night without oxygen, you can start to lose some of your vision, which has happened to me. And it's very hard to notice. Um, you get impaired judgment by your brain not getting enough oxygen, impaired physical performance, and in extreme cases, you can eventually lose consciousness. If everyone knows of Helios Flight 522, I think it's 522, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was a plane in Greece. Essentially, they forgot to flick a switch or something, and their cabin wasn't pressurized, and they went up to a high altitude, and they didn't have enough oxygen, and everyone passed out, and well, everyone was passed out, so the plane just kind of went to the ground. So it can be deadly. And one thing about hypoxia is that it's insidious, okay, which we'll talk about later. But it's very hard to know, it's very hard to determine if you have hypoxia, and there's very little time to react to it. Okay? So here are some symptoms of hypoxia. So there's sort of divided into two categories. So there's what you feel yourself when you have hypoxia, and what you might see in others if they have hypoxia. So in yourself, you feel kind of good, you know? Euphoria is a sense of good feeling. So you feel good, you feel like you're doing great, you're having a great time. You may feel dizzy, you may feel nauseous, headaches, hot and cold flashes, tingling extremities, and numbness. Okay, those are all sort of what you could feel yourself. The main thing though is euphoria. You feel great and you feel like you're doing a good job. Okay? But what others sees in you is you're not performing very well. You have sort of impaired judgment, so you might not be thinking straight. Hey, belligerence. So you think you're doing a good job. You know, other people are like, he's not doing a good job. And you're sort of like, no, 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 I'm doing good. That's sort of what belligerence is. And cyanosis, which is sort of when your hands, like the ends of your body, start to go blue. Okay, so fingers, toes, around the mouth, you sort of get bluish lips. That's cyanosis. Okay. And yes, yeah, the one Helios incident. But these symptoms should be memorized. Okay, just know what you should see in yourself and what you should see in others. Okay. And we have what's called the time of useful consciousness. Okay. So this is your time that you're able to recognize the onset of hypoxia. So if you remember what I was saying about euphoria, at a certain point, you feel like you're doing such a good job that you might not even realize that you're having symptoms of hypoxia. Okay? And this time of useful consciousness is sort of the time that you have to realize your symptoms. Okay. Um, I think there should be some words here. There we go. So yeah, there's a definition, the time available for you to recognize the onset of hypoxia and also take corrective action. So if you recognize it, but you can't sort of like fix the issue, then you're not very useful. The consciousness isn't very useful. Okay. And it varies based on altitude. So if you remember what I was talking about the partial pressures, okay, as we go higher, there's less oxygen, okay, and it sort of means there's less time for us to react before the hypoxia takes over. Okay, so less than 10,000 feet is indefinite. Okay, so we're less than 10,000 feet now. We don't need to worry about getting supplementary oxygen or hypoxia. Okay, at 15,000 feet, you have 30 minutes. And once you get to 20,000 feet, you get 5 to 12. And the main thing is above 30,000, you have less than a minute. Okay, so these sort of airliners that fly way up high in the sky, they don't have a lot of time to react to their hypoxia. Okay, and yes, this table should be memorized. Okay, just yeah, know the numbers, know what altitudes they occur at. 10,000 feet and less, indefinite. Okay, all right. So those time of use for consciousness. They're more averages. Okay, it can vary, and there's different factors that can affect it. So physical fitness is one of them. Okay, so if you're like nice and fit, you'll probably have a longer time of use for consciousness because your heart rate is a lot slower. Okay, again, if you're active, then the shorter time you have. So like if you're if you're sweating and running, then your cells are kind of working. They need all the oxygen, and you're gonna have less time to react. So fitness is like if you're fit, like you're nice and muscular, you're active like beforehand. Okay? And this is if like you're like actually doing activity at high altitudes. Okay, so that's the difference between those. And smokers, if you're a smoker, then you already have some sort of anemic hypoxia, and the less partial pressure would only add on to that, and it would mean that you have a shorter time of consciousness. Okay. All right. So as I was saying before, hypoxia is insidious. Okay. Basically due to that euphoria. Okay, so there's this overwhelming sense of like well-being and bliss. There's actually a YouTube video. They put a guy in like this chamber, and they like slowly took out the oxygen. They're monitoring him, of course. But it's really interesting to see how they gave him tasks and he was doing fine at first, and then all of a sudden he's just like messing up everything. But he thinks he's doing such a good job. You guys can search it up on YouTube on your own time. It's interesting to see. And so what do you do if you have hypoxia? Um, Main thing to do is go on oxygen, obviously, get the oxygen into your body. One way to do that, you could reduce altitude, go down to a lower pressure or a higher pressure, and land as soon as possible and seek medical attention. Okay, let's move on. There we go. Okay, so there are, of course, laws. I don't know if you guys have done air law already. You probably have. There's always laws we need to know. So this is CAR 605.32. Okay, and this is basically the oxygen requirements. Okay, so if you're going to fly without oxygen, so you don't have the supplemental oxygen on board, you can go a maximum of 30 minutes from 10,000 feet to 13,000 feet, and you cannot go above 13,000 feet. Okay, and this is ASL. So if you have oxygen on board, like supplemental oxygen, you're good to go, above 13,000. If you don't have supplemental oxygen, then you can go above 10,000 up to 13,000, but only for 30 minutes. Anything longer than the 30 minutes, you need supplemental oxygen. Okay. And I think there was another thing on here. Okay, yeah. So supplemental breathing oxygen is required for crew and passengers when above 13,000 feet. Okay. So that's why when you're in an airliner, they have those oxygen masks that drop from the ceiling. Okay, that's a requirement. And the pilots will have their own in the front. So I have a question for you guys. Is it legal for us to go up to, let's say, 11,000 feet for 30 minutes, okay, dip back down for like a few seconds below 10,000, and then go back up for another 30 minutes? Is that legal? You can put a thumbs up, yes or no. I don't know what kind of emojis you guys have. Or you can type in the chat. Would that be legal according to this? Yes. Okay. It is legal, but it may not be a good idea. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, it's legal. You can go up and dip down. Okay, not a good idea though. Okay, the 30 minutes is 10,000 to 13,000. Okay, and probably is a good idea to go down, take a breather, and go back up. Okay, and I know there's some people that ask me this all the time. Oh, passengers and stuff between 10,000, 13,000. You guys don't need to know that. This is for crew members only. Okay, so only the crew members need the option for 30 minutes between 10,000 and 13,000. That probably won't be on your test. All right, next slide. Okay, so we talked about not having enough oxygen. Okay, so let's talk about having too much oxygen. Okay, so hyperventilation means that you're breathing at a deeper and faster rate than your body is using. So you're getting more oxygen than you need. Okay, so there's the definition there. Okay, and some causes of hyperventilation, fear. If you guys are like scared, I know the first time I went on a roller coaster, I was hyperventilating, breathing more than I probably should. Anxiety, okay, so it could be a long-term thing, apprehension, or temperature extremes, okay, so breathing at a rate and depth in excess of currently body demand. So if it's like really hot outside and you're breathing and breathing, then you can hyperventilate. Okay. So hyperventilation is caused by the rapid elimination of CO2. So as I said, how the cells kind of give the CO2 back to the blood before it takes it back to the lungs. Okay. Hyperventilation, you have not enough CO2 in your blood. Okay. You have too much oxygen. Okay. And this can lead to reduced blood flow to the brain, which is not the best for pilots. Okay. And eventually you can lose consciousness. So if you ever see like someone hyperventilating and they pass out, um, that's why, because they have too much CO2 in their blood. Okay. After passing out, though, your autonomic system, which is sort of like the auto system of your body, will sort of reboot and like restore everything. So you'll wake up again. But it's probably not the best when flying to pass out and wake up again. Um, yeah, you probably want to be awake the whole time. Okay, and it could cause like a relapse if you pass out, wake up, realize that you passed out, and you start hyperventilating again. So not the best. Okay, so some symptoms, and pay attention to these symptoms because you may find them very similar. Increased breathing rate, which is different, shallow breathing, cold, clammy skin, dizziness, lightheads, hot and cold flashes, vision disturbances, numbness or tingling in extremities. Okay, and if you guys go back and look at the symptoms of hypoxia, you notice these are very similar. Okay, they're very similar, but the causes of it are very different, which we'll talk more about later. But yeah, again, these symptoms should be memorized. Okay, so how do we know if we have hyperventilation or hypoxia? As we notice, the symptoms are very very similar, but the causes are very different. If there's hypoxia, I want more oxygen to solve the issue, but if it's hyperventilation, I want less oxygen. But the symptoms are sort of the same. So how can we deal with that? In this slide, it says assume the worst case scenario, treat for hypoxia and hyperventilation. So this is what you guys should know. So you should treat for both. Okay. In the FTGU, which I forgot to mention, we're covering chapter 11. Okay, the whole chapter. I think it's page 309. Okay, the FTGU says if you're above 8,000, then you treat for hypoxia. And if the symptoms persist, then you treat for hyperventilation. Okay, and if you're below 8,000, then you treat for hyperventilation. Okay, I would go with what the slides say. I'll bring it up. Um, but yeah, so the slides say to treat for both hypoxia and hyperventilation. Okay. Um, so for hyperventilation, you're going to want to control your breathing. So slow down, take a breather. Try breathing into a bag. Okay, that's sort of like the CO2 comes out and you're breathing it back in. So it's sort of replenishing that CO2 in your body. And yeah, in through the throat, out through the mouth. Take it easy. Yeah. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about hypoxia and hyperventilation? Because we're going to sort of switch gears here for a bit. No. Okay. So we're going to talk about some gas expansion effects. So Boyle's law, volume of gas is inversely proportional to its pressure. So if we increase the pressure, we increase the volume. Okay. It should be proportional to its pressure. Sure. Gas. Oh, okay. I see what it means. So let's say we have a balloon. Okay. Well, I guess you guys are here. Let's say we have a balloon, okay, and we sort of blow it up. Okay, and the pressure around the balloon sort of decreases, but the pressure inside the balloon is still high. So what's going to happen? Well, the balloon's going to sort of expand, right? Sound like blowing up a balloon from the outside. Okay, if we increase the pressure around the balloon, okay, it's going to sort of like push it in. Okay, so the balloon's going to shrink. Okay, so that's sort of what Boyle's law is saying. So if we fly at a higher altitude, okay, and the pressure drops, as I mentioned before, we have these little cavities all over our body where there's air that's trapped. Okay, and that air is kept at the pressure that we're at now. Okay, the atmosphere, the uh, ground level pressure. If we go up, and the pressure around us decreases, these gases sort of expand in our bodies. Okay, and this can cause different effects on us. It can lead to discomfort and pain. And yeah, so in our ears, sinuses, and teeth, these can all have issues. Okay, great. Next slide. So we're going to talk about gas expansion in the ear first. So the eardrum will begin to bulge inwards as the gas sort of is less pressurized around us. You may have dulled hearing. You're going to feel a sense of fullness. So I guess, yeah, you feel kind of like, like full around you. I'm not sure how to explain that very well. It could be painful if it's like a big difference. You could even rupture your eardrum. Okay, so I kind of added this ear in here. So here's our eardrum. Okay, and we have the eustachian tube here. Okay, the eustachian tube is connected to our throat. Okay, and this can get blocked. So if it's blocked, then this sort of pocket in here is left at the pressure that we left it at. But if outside here, pressure is different, well, then it's going to sort of like compress, compress and expand our eardrum here. And this is where these symptoms come from. All right. So, uh, some preventative measures. Okay, don't fly when you're congested. So as I said with this eustachian tube here, if you're congested, this gets blocked up real easy. Okay, and it can be harder to sort of equalize the pressure. Okay, so it's advisable not to fly when you're congested, and don't self-medicate. Okay, some relief measures: chewing, swallowing, yawning, altitude control, and the Valsalva maneuver. Okay, um, we can sort of do the Valsalva maneuver. So I'm not sure if you all know what it is, but to do it, you're gonna close your mouth, and you guys can all do it with me. You can close your mouth, hold your nose, and sort of blow gently. Okay? And you'll sort of feel your eustachian tube like opening and clearing up, not clearing up, but equalizing the pressure outside and inside. Okay, and I'll demonstrate the Valsalva maneuver. Okay, I did that. Okay, yeah, make sure you guys practice that. It's not something for we can test on a written exam, but it's good to know for when you're actually flying. Okay, and yeah, if any of you have trouble doing it, there's sort of like methods you can find online. I find the best for me is the nose and the mouth and to blow gently. Okay, next slide. So, acid trapped in sinus cavities and skull can expand. Okay, so now we're talking about sort of our sinuses in our skull. Okay, this can be genetically caused. Okay, so you can have like weirdly shaped sinuses. I know my mom has interesting sinuses, and she has to like feed water through there. It's quite disgusting actually, but it's what she has to do in order to clear her sinuses. It can be caused by illness. So if you have a cold, your sinuses can get blocked up, or allergies. So there's sort of mucus in there, and it gets all blocked up. Okay, so once again, don't fly when you're sick or congested. As the pressure, as you go up and down, pressure is just going to make you feel more sick, and the gas is going to expand again. Okay, on ascent, so when you're going up, rigorous nose blowing, and on descent, the Valsalva maneuver. Okay, so when you're going up, you want to get that mucus out. When you're coming down, you want to equalize that pressure so it doesn't build up too much of a difference and get painful. Okay, so now we're going to talk about teeth. Okay, so um, everyone has teeth. Um, in your teeth, there's different cavities, like beneath your teeth, in between your gums. If you guys had a dental filling, there could be cavities in there. Okay, so if there's gas trapped in your teeth, you can sort of get decay. Okay, and yeah, as I said, air trapped under filling. Okay, so the effectiveness as you go up and down on your teeth can be excruciating tooth pain. Okay, and relief measures, or you can't really like do a Valsalva maneuver with your teeth. So if your dentist advises you not to fly, then don't fly. Okay, and if you do experience pain, go see your dentist. Okay, let's see. Yeah, then the feelings can start to hurt. All right. Next, we're going to talk about gastrointestinal expansion. So, the gastrointestinal tract, that's your food tract. Food goes in down your pipe into your stomach through your intestines, okay, and out the other end. So the digestive process generates gases in your stomach and your intestines, and as the pressure around again decreases, the gas expands in your stomach and intestines, and this can result in some discomfort and pain. And some preventive measures: don't eat gassy foods, so like don't chug a Coke and then go flying up to high altitudes. Don't consume gassy or carbonated drinks, and don't eat too fast, because as you eat fast, you sort of swallow more air with that, and that's more gas that can expand. Okay, and relief measures, uh, altitude control, use the flapper valve and pass the gas. Okay, I think you guys can decipher that one. All right. So, does anyone have any questions about gas expansion? No. Okay, so we're going to move on to decompression effects. Oh, yes. Cadet Singh.
Can you explain that balloon example again, where there's like higher pressure in the inside and lower pressure?
Yeah, so gas expansion. I guess we're going to go back here. Do, 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 do. So, Bohr's law, volume is inversely proportional to pressure. So, if I sort of have a balloon, right, and it's sort of like blown up to a certain amount, let's say the air around the balloon decreases in pressure. Okay, so that there's going to be less air pushing on that balloon. Okay, so it's going to be able to expand with the pressure inside. So it's going to kind of expand as the pressure outside decreases. If the pressure outside increases, it's going to sort of push that balloon like into a smaller volume. Okay, so the volume of the balloon is going to decrease. Okay, so it's the difference between the pressure inside the balloon and the pressure outside the balloon. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that kind of clarified it. That makes sense.
Yeah. You can think of the outside pressure as like pushing on the balloon. So if there's less
Yeah.
pressure, there's less push. So less push means it will expand, and vice versa. Okay, any other questions about gas expansion? All right, no other questions. Let's move on to decompression effects. So we sort of talk about expanding. Let's talk about uh, the opposite of expanding, decompression. Okay, so your blood it doesn't only have nitrogen, CO, or sorry, it doesn't only have oxygen and CO2. Okay, it also has nitrogen. So when you're at sea level, like we are now, this nitrogen sort of remains in a solution. Okay, but if we're exposed to um, reduced atmospheric pressure, like at higher altitudes, it starts to sort of bubble off. So if you think of like a fizzy drink, it's sort of like that. Like the nitrogen is bubbling out of the solution in your blood. Okay, and this can be very uncomfortable. Okay, let's see what we have on the slides here. So yeah, your blood contains nitrogen, sea level, it's in a solution. It can bubble off. Um, Slow off gassing can be handled by the body. So if it's like slow, like it's like a light fizz, your body can handle that. But if we change altitudes rapidly, um, it becomes harder for your body to handle that fizzing. Okay. Um, and yeah, it can result in nitrogen forming these bubbles in the bloodstream. So if you think of like a can of pop, if you open it nice and slowly, okay, it's sort of like it doesn't go everywhere. But if you shake it vigorously, open it fast, maybe drop a Mentos in there, it's gonna go everywhere. It's gonna make a mess. So that's sort of what's going on in your body when you change pressure rapidly. So yeah, this can cause what's called decompression sickness if we have these bubbles in our body. And there's different types of decompression sickness, and they're sort of classified as to where these bubbles are occurring. Okay? And they have sort of interesting names to them. The first one is the bends. Okay, this is when there's nitrogen bubbles in the joints of your body, so like your elbow, your knee, maybe like in like the joints in your neck or your back. Um, Wrist, hip. Okay, there's sort of bubbles in there. And this can cause deep pain. The pain can change from mild to like excruciating pain and like really sharp. And moving that joint around can aggravate the pain. So let's say you're flying a plane and like you're holding like the stick or the side stick or the yoke, and you're kind of moving your wrist around. It can be painful. Okay. This is mainly occurring at altitude during a descent. Okay, or it can occur after the flight. Okay, so good to know. There's a more severe one, the chokes. Okay, so there's bubbles in your lungs. Okay, and this can cause a burning chest pain. Okay, and this can be aggravated by breathing. And of course, you have to breathe. So if it hurts to breathe, then there's an issue. Okay, you can have shortness of breath or a constant dry cough. Okay, and there's some more of these. So we also have the creeps. Okay, so the creeps is when there's bubbles in your skin. Okay, you can sort of feel itchy, ears, face, arms. Um, you get a sensation of tiny insects crawling. Okay, because you have those little bubbles, all under your skin. Um, you can have marbled skin around the shoulders and upper chest and abdomen and swelling. Okay, there's also another name for it, paresthesia. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. You can also call it the creeps. There's central nervous system disturbances. So this can be similar symptoms to a stroke, including headache, vision disturbances, balance disturbances, and loss of like motor function. And then there's obviously the more severe one, which is nitrogen narcosis, which is when you have bubbles in your brain. Okay, and these can have similar effects to hypoxia. Okay, so impaired judgment and performance. All right. So yeah, the type of decompression is characterized by where the nitrogen bubbles migrate or congregate. And it's in extreme cases, especially with the chokes and these nitrogen necrosis, it can be fatal. Okay, so this is something you take seriously. Um, yeah, so um, it's an aviation hazard. So if you do a rapid climb, you put yourself at elevated risk for DCS. So as I said, sort of you shake that bottle of pop and open it, and it kind of goes everywhere. If you change altitudes rapidly, that nitrogen starts to bubble off really quick, and that can start to form those bubbles around your body. Okay, so rapid changes in altitude put you at elevated risk, and also explosive decompressions. Okay, so this is sort of like the pressure like suddenly decreases around you or increases. So let's say you're up at altitude and your door like pops open and suddenly the cabin pressure is like a lot lower. This can put you at a risk of decompression sickness. Okay. Some ways to avoid decompression sickness. This is in the AIM, hey, not the cars, the AIM. And there's sort of like some rules here for you to follow. So I don't know if anyone does scuba diving, but if you do, you should know what decompression stops are. So basically, when scuba divers go down, if they go down to a certain depth, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because I'm not a scuba diver. If you go down to a certain depth, when you come back up, you need to kind of stop and let your body equalize with the pressure around you before you come back to the surface. Okay, so if you are doing a dive where you need decompression stops, you cannot fly for 24 hours. Okay. If you're doing a dive where you don't need decompression stops, you cannot fly for 12 hours below 8,000 feet or 24 hours above 8,000 feet. Okay. I'll say this one more time because this is a bit difficult to understand. So if you're doing a dive and let's say you don't need decompression stops, if you're only planning to go to an altitude below 8,000, then you only need to wait 12 hours before flying. If you're planning to go to a flight above 8,000, you need to wait 24 hours, so a day before flying. If your dive needs decompression stops, it's 24 hours regardless of the altitude that you're flying to. Okay. I hope that's clear for everyone. Are there any questions? Okay, no questions. So yeah, this would be something to memorize and know well. Okay, just the rules here when it comes to scuba diving. Because again, these are big changes in pressure. So you're going from high pressure down low to low pressure up high, and you have that elevated risk of decompression sickness. Okay. So that's sort of the end of our lesson here. I have some confirmation questions. So can anyone tell me what is the definition of hypoxia? Yes, I guess the first one was cadet. Uh, I guess cadet Poitras. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Correct me if I'm not.
That's correct, sir. Um, Definition of hypoxia is a condition where the cells of the body do not receive sufficient oxygen to function properly.
Perfect. Okay, so hypoxia is when we're not getting the cells are not getting the oxygen that they need in order to function. Okay. Next question. Can someone name me the four types of hypoxia? Cadet Perot. Correct me if it's wrong.
It's Perot.
Perot. Okay, Cadet Perot. Four types of hypoxia.
The hypoxic hypoxia, anemic
Okay,
hypoxia, stagnant hypoxia, and his histotoxic hypoxia.
perfect. And can anyone tell me where or what causes stagnant hypoxia? Sort of where in the process does stagnant hypoxia occur? Cadet Schmaltz.
It occurs when blood flow is impaired, so impaired circulation, and when the cells can't access the blood.
Yeah, so the blood isn't moving around our body properly. Okay. Hey, can someone tell me what the definition of hyperventilation is?
Increased oxygen.
Yeah, increased oxygen. Okay. Does anyone have the definition from the slides? I think Cadet Singh had their hand up first.
Hyperventilation is the excess loss of carbon dioxide from your body.
Hey, yeah. It's best to know like the not the word for a definition, but like the big definition, because they kind of like pull these on the exams where they'll give you the like what is the definition of hyperventilation. Okay, so good to know and memorize. All right, and yeah, so hyperventilation is when we have too much oxygen. It's we're breathing too fast. Oops, there we go. Did I miss a question? No. Okay. So can someone describe some of the symptoms of hypoxia? So what we see in others and what we would see in ourselves. Okay, so Cadet Anderson.
So in yourself, you could see euphoria, um, headaches, nausea. Uh, there's others I just don't remember them off the top of my head. And what you'd
Yeah,
see in
okay.
others is decrease in performance, belligerent. Uh, I remembered like half of them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
compared to
here they are here.
diagnose.
Okay. This is one like to sit through and just memorize all of them. Okay. But also know like where they come from, right? So euphoria, you're feeling good, okay, your brain um, doesn't have like the oxygen needs to work properly. So it's kind of just chilling, it's having a good time because it's not working properly. You think you're doing good, your brain thinks you're doing good. Everything is like working well with each other, but you're not actually doing good because you don't have enough oxygen. Dizziness, okay, sort of like you don't have enough, like your brain isn't functioning properly, so you sort of feel like wobbly. You can get nausea, okay, headaches again with the brain, hot and cold flashes, okay, tingling in the like extremities, so like the ends of your fingers, which are not getting
Is everyone
they're
on the
getting
internet right now?
Sasha. Sorry, did you say something? Could I schmus?
No, sir. My internet is just acting up. That was probably a while ago.
Oh, okay, no issues. All right, and yeah, what others see in you? So of course they see like poor performance. Okay, so like you're not, like what's this guy doing? Impaired judgment. So like he's not making the right decisions. Belligerence again with the euphoria. You're feeling good. Other people don't think you're doing good. And then the blue like tips of the fingers, cyanosis. Okay. All right. So that's it for aeromedical one. Does anyone have any further questions about this content? Well, let me open my chat. Guess I missed anything. Oh. people are asking questions, so yeah, that's good. All right, any other questions about aeromedicine 1? Hypoxia, hyperventilation, decompression sickness, and gas expansion. Yes, Cadet Hassan.
About the gas expansion, I don't really understand how the like pressure change affects it. So do you mind explaining that again, please?
So yeah, so again with the balloon, right? So like the pressure around the balloon sort of decreases. Pressure in the balloon is the same. So the balloon's going to expand. So think of your body as that balloon. So you have gases like trapped all in different parts of your body. Okay? And if the pressure around your body decreases, then they start to like expand within your body. But it can't escape because your body is like the balloon keeping it in. So you get these sort of like larger volumes in your body than they're used to because of the gas. And that's what sort of causes the symptoms. I
Okay,
hope that
thank you.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
All right. Yes, and I do apologize, guys, if this is a bit the content's a bit dry. It's ground school. Okay. I'll try to make it fun. Okay. And we'll get some participation. Okay. So a reminder of class rules. I think I shared those with you guys already. Okay. Okay, so um we're gonna now look at some physiological factors that you need to deal with. Okay, this is we're going to look more at orientation and disorientation. Okay, so the visual sort of illusions or other illusions that you could face as a pilot. Okay, so some teaching points. We're going to start with orientation and disorientation. Okay, defining what those are. We're going to move into visual scanning, okay, and visual disorientations. Okay, and then we're going to move into some more sort of less, I would say important, but some bigger topics such as fatigue and situational awareness. Okay, those are some big ones. All right, so let's start by defining what orientation is. Okay, I hope you guys sitting down at your desk, your kitchen table, wherever you guys are, that you're nice and oriented. Hey, sitting straight up, looking at your computer, phone, whatever you're looking at. You guys should be all oriented right now. Okay, so this is the determination of the relative position to something or someone. Okay, so you're gonna sort of like orient yourself towards someone. Okay, orient yourself this way. I'm gonna orient my paper sort of around. Okay, that's what orientation is. I think that's pretty given. Okay, but the process of us becoming orientated is dominated by what we see. Okay, visual cues and references. Okay, so when visual references are limited, so when we kind of can't see, we get sort of disoriented. Okay, we start to lose these sort of cues that we need in order to orient ourselves. Okay, so this is where it brings us into disorientation, okay, which is a false sense of one's position and motion relative to the surface of the earth. Okay, um, so yeah, this is when you can't orient yourself due to a loss of visual cues. You don't know where you are. Okay, you don't know like if you're upside down or it's set up. That's disorientation. Okay. And there's two types. Okay, there's recognized disorientation. So there's a conscious recognition that you're disoriented. So you know that you're not oriented. Okay, but you know. Okay, it's in your brain. You know. Okay, I'm not oriented. So it's conscious. Okay? And we can compensate for this. Okay? If you're flying IFR, you don't have any reference to the outside. You don't have any reference to the ground. So the whole time you're kind of disoriented. Okay? But we use sort of instruments in order to orient ourselves. Okay, so that's why it's instrument flight rules as opposed to visual flight rules. And then there's unrecognized disorientation. Okay, so this is when um, you are disoriented, but you don't know that you're disoriented. Okay, and this is sort of more severe. Okay, you can't really correct because you don't know that you're disoriented. This can result in a loss of control. So let's say you're in a cloud. Okay, you think you're flying, straight and level, but you're actually kind of spiraling towards the ground, and you don't know that you're doing that because you're disoriented. And this can lead to accidents. It's a leading cause in aviation accidents. Okay. So how could disorientation occur? So how can we get disorientated in the first place? Let's sort of talk about that. So the first is sensory illusion. Okay, so our brain um, incorrectly interpret sensory information. So this is when our brain isn't taking in the information from our eyes correctly, and tells us that our body is moving in a way that it's not actually moving, so you're disoriented. Generally, this occurs when there is reduced reduced visual cues. So if you're flying in sort of bad weather and there's rain, you can't see very far. Maybe you can't see the ground. Okay, in a cloud in IFR, or at night. Okay, at nighttime when you're flying over like a lake, so a lake and there's like a cloud layer on top, everything is just black and dark. Okay, you can't really see anything, and that's one way that you can get disoriented. Okay, sensory illusions are very powerful. Okay, um, you can get disoriented very easily, very fast, and you don't even realize it. Okay, so if you're unaware of the illusions that we're going to go through, and you don't compensate for them, you will become disoriented. Okay, so the first sensory illusion that we're going to talk about is somatographic. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Somatographic illusions. Okay, this is linear illusions. Okay, so this is when we're accelerating and decelerating. So you guys can sort of like do this in your chair. So if you like accelerate forwards, right, you kind of feel like you're going backwards. Okay, so if you're at a level acceleration, you sort of feel a pitch up illusion. So if you're in a plane and all of a sudden you add power, okay, you're going a lot faster, real quick, you feel like you're pitching up. Okay. Um, Opposite, if you kind of slow down fast, okay, then you kind of feel like you're pitching down. Okay, so those are the two somatographic illusions. Okay, and this is because the otoliths in our brain, which are sorry, in our ears, which are responsible for reacting to like the acceleration forces, don't agree with our visual cues because we can't see outside. So it kind of feels like we're pitching up and pitching down instead of accelerating and decelerating. Okay. Anyone have any questions about the somatographic illusions? I think Hassan still has, Cadet Hassan, you still have your hand up. Okay, that's probably from before. Okay. So, yeah, let's talk about the semicircular canals before I move on. This is in the course notes. It's not in the slides on the SharePoint, but yeah, you can find it in the course notes. So the otoliths are here. Okay, they're responsible for sensing like sort of linear motion, so front and back motion. Okay, and then we have our semicircular canals. Okay, and in these canals, there's fluid. So as we like tilt our head around, that fluid sort of like sloshes around in the canals, and it tells our brain like which kind of direction our head is tilted towards, if that makes sense. So obviously, if we can't see outside and we get information from our canals that don't match our eyes, we can get disoriented. Okay? So we have the leans. Okay, so our semicircular canals and our so our vestibular apparatus, so that's our semicircular canals, contradict what we see. Okay, so let's say we're turning in a plane. Okay, we can't see outside and we're turning, okay, and we sort of forget that we're turning. So we're kind of in a bank turning around. We're tilted sideways, we're rolled towards one place. Okay, and we decide, okay, we're gonna stop turning and we level out of the turn. Okay? But in that turn, the fluid in our semicircular canals has sort of balanced itself. So, and you can't see outside, so you don't know that your head is tilted, but it kind of balances itself. So when you roll out, it disrupts that balance, and you think that you're turning the other way. Okay, so yeah, when you bank the wings level, the semicircular canals become upset, and then the brain will interpret this as you leaning into the opposite direction. So you're going to turn, you roll out of the turn, but your brain thinks that you were level and you roll the other way. Okay. And this sort of leads to that illusion. So yeah, if you do succumb to this illusion, you'll incorrectly compensate. So you roll out of the turn, your brain thinks you roll this way, but you're actually level. But because your brain thinks that you're turned the other way, you start to turn back into the turn. Okay, and this can lead to what's called a spiraling graveyard. spiraling to the ground. I think in FTG they call it spiraling graveyard. A graveyard spiral. Okay, so you're kind of spiraling towards the grave because you just keep turning and turning and turning because your brain thinks that you're like turning back towards level, but you're actually turning into a spiral, and you spiral all the way towards the ground, and you don't even realize it because you're disoriented. Okay. Um, there's the Coriolis illusions. Okay. These are caused by the rapid movement of your head. Okay. So again, with the canals, there's fluid in there. If you, let's say you're turning in a spiral and you kind of like move your head rapidly in like the similar motion with the body or in a contrary motion, the fluid starts to like slosh around the canals, and this can give you a sense of violent and rapid tumbling. Okay? And it's very strong. I've never experienced it myself. I know few people that had, and it's very strong. Okay, so I think if you're in an office chair or a merry-go-round and you spin around like rapidly and you get off and you kind of like, whoa, that's kind of like what it's like. So that fluid is kind of sloshing around in there. Okay, this is the most powerful and violent sensory illusion of the game. Okay, does anyone have any questions about the sort of ear motion illusions? There's one person with their hand up. Yes, Cadet Grido.
Can you explain the leans again?
Sure. So the leaves, we're in a turn, okay? And the fluid in our ear canals has sort of stabilized. Okay, so we're in a turn, and our brain thinks that we're actually level. Okay, let me get my plane here. That's sort of a model. Here we go. So our plane is level, okay? Or sorry, no, we're in a turn. Okay, we're turning around slowly. Okay, but we're keeping this constant like angle of bank for a long period of time. So our brain sort of like normalizes that. It thinks that okay, we're nice and level, okay, but we're actually in a turn. So when we roll out of that turn, it upsets the fluid in our ear canals, and we start to think that we're rolling the other way, when in actuality, we're just rolling out of the turn. So to compensate for that, if you don't like realize your brain is doing this, you kind of feel like you need to roll more into the turn, okay? And this can lead to the spiraling graveyard. We would just spiral towards the ground. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Cadet Zagraphos. No, okay, that's from before. All right. I guess we'll move on to some visual illusions. So as VFR pilots, PPL, and glider pilots, these will be the ones that you have to deal with the most, okay, the visual illusions. So with our eyes, we see what we want to see, okay? So whether there's like something in front of you and you don't want to see it, your eyes sometimes won't pick it up, okay? Which can be not good when we're flying and we want to see things. So our eyes can pick up contradictory information, or yeah, we expect to see one thing and our brain can't accept that we actually see it, okay, which can be dangerous. Okay, so we have runway illusions. There's this graph here that's in your slideshow on the SharePoint. There's also, I don't know if you guys have access to the what are the lesson plans? Yeah, I think they're called lesson plans. If you guys have access to those. But these images are in the lesson plans. They're also in the FTGU. Yeah. Okay. So so runway illusions. If our runway varies in size and width, our eyes kind of fall illusion to that. Okay. So if our runway is wide, and you can kind of see in this photo here, if it's wide, what do you guys think is going to happen if our runway is wide? Will our approach be, let's say, normal? Will it be low or will we be high? You guys can type in the chat. Yes, cadet that raised their hand. I'm sure it was. You guys can yell at our raise in chat. We're going to be low, high. If you look at the image and you kind of see that runway, what do you think? Yeah, we're going to be low. Okay, so if the runway is nice and wide, you're going to be really low. Okay, and if the runway is normal, okay, well, that's what it normally looks like there. But what if our runway is narrow? What do you guys think? Are we going to be high, low, normal? If like we have a narrow runway. Higher, right? Because we think the runway is farther away than it actually is because it's so narrow. Actually, the story of this. So, I did my I got my glider license before I started my PPO, and I'm used to flying at Mountain View, Picton, that area. If you guys are from Central, I'm not sure if you know. And I do gliding on weekends at Wingham, which has a very like narrow runway. But then when I started my PPO, I did it at Waterloo Airport, which is a big international airport, and the runway is huge. And every time my instructor would say, "Man, you're always so high." And it's because of these illusions, okay? Right? The runway is so much wider than I was used to. So I thought it was lower. So I ended up approaching higher than I actually needed to. Okay. So yeah, they are very noticeable when you start to fly. Okay? And there's also illusions when it comes to slope. Okay, so if you sort of like, you can use your hand with this and think about it. You can also see the image here. So if our runway is a downslope, I think it's actually the same image as before. Yeah, I didn't bother to change it, but if the runway is downslope, then we're gonna feel like we're low again because we're kind of at like an angle. We're kind of at a less angle towards the runway. So if you guys kind of look at that with your hands, so we're gonna feel lower than we are if the runway is downslope. And again, if it's upslope, it kind of gonna look farther away. So you're gonna be higher when you approach. Okay. And yeah, going back to the table. So it's important to know the illusions for these, okay, and the result. So upslope runway, you're gonna feel again that you're higher. So the result is going to be that you fly too low. Okay, the result is always the opposite of your illusion. Okay? And there's also some more things here. There's featureless ground. So if like the ground around the runway doesn't have many features to it, you're gonna feel like you're farther away than the runway than you are. So you're gonna approach low. Okay, if you have rain on the canopy, okay, rain makes things appear farther. So you're gonna feel that you're higher than you are. So you're gonna approach too low. Haze, this again plays into the like featureless stuff. So if there's like you can't see much around, then again you can be higher or push lower. And then there's the downslope and wide runway. Okay. So yeah, just know this chart and it's good to understand like how it works and why. Okay. Any questions about the slope illusions? No, I actually have a funny story about the slope. So, oh yes, Cadet Singh.
Hi, could you explain like the downslope and the upslope again, and how you think that you're higher or lower?
Sure. So if you kind of take your hand, right? You keep your head where it is and you keep your hand flat. Okay. Remember that picture there and tilt your hand downward. Okay. And you kind of sort of see what you see here in the slide. Okay. Is this like wide runway? Okay. And like it looks like you're close to the ground. So the result is that you're going to be higher, but you're going to feel lower. Okay. And if you do it the opposite way, you tilt your hand up, then you're going to see more of the runway. So you're going to feel higher and you're going to want to approach lower.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
yeah, kind of.
Yeah. So actually, at my gliding site at Wingham, the runway is kind of weird because some of it slopes up, some of it's flat, and some of it's like it's all over the place. And I did a cross country there once, and I'm used to landing on the other end of the runway, but this time I landed on. I was coming in from the other way, and the runway is like sloped up, and yeah, it wasn't a very good landing because I was sort of experiencing those illusions. Okay, so yeah, they're very prominent and they're very noticeable once you're actually flying. Okay, so good to know them and have them in the back of your mind. Okay, so visual scanning techniques. Oh yes, someone has a question before I move on. Someone had their hand
Hello.
raised. Yes, hello.
Yeah, I did. What does down like is like a downslope just like actually like not leveled and like it's like downwards or like is that like what it means or like is it like in a location which is like, do you understand?
Yeah, so downslope basically means the runway is sloping down, okay, with respect to your approach path. Okay, so if you're flying, it's respect to your flying level, right? So if your flying level is like this and the runway slope down, okay, then you're gonna experience those illusions. Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so it's like the actual runway is sloped down or sloped up, right? And the terrain can also be sloped up and sloped down. And yeah, speaking of that, there's also some more illusions that you'll find in the from the ground up. There's runway in a valley, and so it's down-sloping terrain and up-sloping terrain. Seeing that that's not in the slideshow, you guys don't have to know it. But yeah, it will be good to read through that in the FTGU. Okay. All right, so vision is again as VFR pilots our primary sense of orientation for where we are. It can be accurate, it's reliable, and it gives us a clear picture of what's going on around us. Okay. So orientation by vision is dependent on the references outside and around us. Okay, the things we can see. So in order for us to keep our attitude, we need to have a visible horizon. Okay? If we don't have the horizon on our sight, then we're not going to know what attitude our nose is pointed at. Okay. Um, Ground references help us to determine how high we are. Okay? So if like the things on the ground are much more clear and distinct, you know you're at a lower altitude. And if they're kind of like small, blurry, like little ants, you know you're higher. Okay? And also for navigation, like, oh, I'm over Winnipeg or I'm over Toronto. Okay. And obstruction to these references can cause confusion and disorientation. Okay, so smoke, haze, fog, cloud, and precipitation all can cause issues with your vision. I know when I was doing my PPL, we had the smoke issue out here in Toronto, and yeah, it was very hard to find the horizon sometimes, and that would always, cause issues when I was trying to learn how to do stalls and stuff. And also lack of daylight. So when you start night flying, it's really hard to see the horizon and orient yourself in the dark. And there's sort of a whole different ways to deal with that, which you guys don't need to know. Okay, so glare. Um, glare. Explain this to you. There you go. So bright sunlight can cause glare on like our windshield and stuff, which can reduce our vision and can actually cause pain in your eyes. Okay, so think of like staring at the sun. It can cause you to squint or kind of look away. Okay, which is kind of not what we want as pilots. Okay, we want to be focused on what's around us and not have to change our like line of sight due to the sun. So wearing proper sunglasses, like here I have my flight sunglasses. Okay, wearing them, it can help you adjust for the sun and enhance your ability to see cloud, and it will also protect your eyes from any damage. Okay, and of course, long-term unexpected exposure to bright sunlight can cause long-term damage to your eyes and eventually cost you your medical certificate. Okay, so if you stare at the sun for too long and you can't see, and your eyesight becomes so bad, then you're going to lose your medical, which isn't optimal. Okay, so now we're going to get into some visual scanning techniques. So as a VFR pilot, I don't know if you guys did air law already, but collision avoidance can be your responsibility. Okay, so it's your responsibility to look out for other planes and avoid them. Okay, and even if you are controlled, it's still best practice to like look out and make sure that you're not heading towards anyone. Okay. Now, it's based entirely on the principle of C and be seen. Okay, the big sky theory doesn't work. Okay, so the theory that there's a big sky, okay, no one's going to hit on each other, that's not going to work because there's been many mid-air collisions before. I'm sure you guys can search up mid-air episode, mid-air collision. You'll find, I think there's quite a few of them actually. But yeah, so big sky theory doesn't work. Okay, collision avoidance, you need to be seen and you need to see others. Okay, but spotting small aircraft in the sky, uh, it's very difficult until it's too late, if that makes sense. Okay, so like if there's a small dot in the sky, it's going to be very hard to see. Okay, but if it's big, you can see it, but that means it's coming towards you and it's about to hit you. Okay, so we need to learn how to scan properly and effectively in order to see other traffic. I think I missed something here. Okay, no, we're gonna cover it later. So, empty field myopia. So this is when you're kind of staring at, sort of a blank, same colored like canvas. Okay, so let's say it's a nice clear day and it's nice and blue, sky is blue, there's no clouds, and you're kind of just staring at the sky. You're kind of just staring at like this empty blue sheet. Okay, and there's nothing like interesting going on. Or if it's like snowy and like all you can see is white around you, this is how you get empty field myopia. Okay. When this happens, your eyes automatically focus to close distances. Okay, so if you're like staring at a blue sky, your eye is focused at a distance like a mile or two away, so not very far. So if a plane comes by that's like far away, it's gonna be very hard for you to see it when you're experiencing empty field myopia. Um, if there's a small object moving, there's a greater chance you'll be able to see it scanning a large area. Okay, so if there's like a small object kind of moving around, if you scan a large area, like you scan around, it's like more likely chance you'll see it. Um, More likely to see an object when it's relative to the horizon or ground reference, giving off a reflection. Okay. And there's also expectancy. Okay, so if you don't expect to see anything, then surprisingly, you're not actually going to see it. Okay. Even if you do see a dot, your brain might not register it. If you're saying, "Oh, there's no one else around me," your brain will just automatically ignore it, and you won't register it. Okay, which can be dangerous. So, yes, here it is. So we're going to talk about kind of how we can effectively scan. Okay, so the way to do it, if you're flying and you want to scan around, is to not be random. Okay, you want something organized, and you want to sort of divide the sky into different sections. Okay, the best way to do it, or at least the way I do it, is I divide the sky into 3 or 5 sections. Okay, kind of the left, center, right. Okay, and the best way to do it is to look at one section, look up, pause for a few minutes, or sorry, for a few seconds, pause for a few seconds, process what you're seeing. Okay, don't see anything, move down. Okay, process that, kind of move to the next session, look up, process down. So it's this methodological, is that the word? Methodology. Yeah, it's a organized method at scanning the sky. Okay. Um, Focus on areas of the sky where would be the greatest risk of collision for you. So like looking back, maybe looking back, it's not really necessary because you're going this way. Looking in front and like just a bit to the sides, especially if you're going to turn. So if I'm going to do like a right turn somewhere, I want to make sure I'm scanning more towards the right. Okay, so the areas where there's a greater risk of collision, so focus your sight towards that area. Okay, and on your PPL or glider flight test, this is one of the criteria. Okay, visual scanning, they assess it throughout the flight. So if you fail to like visually scan around and they notice that you're not looking around properly, you're going to fail the flight test. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about visual scanning technique? Okay. So I think that's it for the illusions. And now we're going to move on to what is, I think, probably the most important topic, or yes, one of the most important topics that we're going to talk about today, and it's fatigue. Okay. I'm sure all of you have been fatigued at some point, have not gotten enough sleep. Maybe you're fatigued right now. Okay. And fatigue is a loss of energy or strength or weariness. Okay. So it doesn't necessarily have to do with sleep. Okay? You can like run like a marathon, even if you got enough sleep, you're going to be fatigued. Okay. And fatigue is a major player in the aviation industry. Okay. So there's 2 types of fatigue. And the first one is acute fatigue. So this is short term. So like the night before, you only got 6 hours of sleep, 5 hours of sleep, and you woke up because you have a midterm or exam tomorrow, okay, and that's acute fatigue. There you go, acute fatigue. So it's poor sleep the night before. Okay, this is a short-term fatigue, okay, and it can be the result of working hard. So, like as I said, running a marathon or doing exercise, high levels of stress. Okay, so you can be stressed even if you got enough sleep. You can be so stressed that you're fatigued, and yeah, or poor sleep the night before. Okay, acute fatigue is very easily corrected. Okay, the correction is get a good night's sleep. It can be hard sometimes, but it's important. Okay, even a nap works. Caffeine can also help. The one thing about caffeine is that the way caffeine works is it makes your body forget that you're tired for a certain period of time. Okay, so I'm sure all of you have had caffeine before. It kind of makes you forget that you're tired and you kind of feel like re-energized. Okay? But correcting the, you're not actually letting your body like rest and sleep. Okay? It's just letting your body forget that it's tired. So once the caffeine wears off, not only are you going to be tired, but you're going to be more tired than you were before. And that's how you get a caffeine crash. Okay. If any of you go into aviation in the future, we've had to take whole courses on fatigue, at least in my program. So it's something that's very important in the industry. Okay. All right. And the next type of fatigue we're going to talk about is chronic fatigue. So this is no longer short term. Okay. This is like you've missed like hours of sleep for the past week, month, year. Okay. And you're chronically fatigued. Um, this is a result of like sleep deprivation. So you're not letting yourself sleep enough every night for like a long period of time. And the only way to correct this is to get several long nights of sleep. This is a big thing, especially for airline pilots that do long haul flying and like commute to their work and all that stuff. They typically, or most of them miss out on a lot of sleep and they can become chronically fatigued very quickly if they're not responsible about it. Okay? And there are some major symptoms when it comes to this. And yeah, for chronic fatigue, the symptoms can also be longer lasting. So it can lead to lasting health effects in the future. So there's some effective effects of fatigue. I'm sure you guys have all experienced this. So disorganized thinking, you're tired, okay, you're not gonna think properly. Okay. I've written quite a few exams, getting like 3 hours of sleep the night before, and you just don't do very well in the exam because you're so tired. It's because you have this disorganized thinking. You have slower reactions. Okay, so let's say a pilot is fatigued and this like master caution warning is going off in front of him. It's going to take a longer time to, first of all, realize that it's going off, and second of all, realize what to do about it. Okay, and this has led to quite a lot of accidents. Loss of situational awareness. So loss of like, realizing what's going on around you. Fixating is a big one. Okay. So when you're tired, and let's say there's like a small issue, and you're going to fixate on that one thing, and there could be everything going on around you, and you're not going to notice it because of this loss of situational awareness. And you're going to be fixating on that one thing. I don't remember the flight number. There was a flight though where there was a broken landing light and the pilots were fatigued. It was like a night flight, and there was this like broken landing gear light, and the issue was with the bulb. But they're so fixated on fixing that one like broken bulb that they completely forgot that they were running out of fuel, and they crashed, all because they're fixating on that bulb. Okay? So fixating is also a big one, and yeah, another effective fatigue is falling asleep. So it's actually called micro sleeps. If you're so fatigued, sometimes you fall asleep for like a few seconds, and sometimes you don't even realize it. Okay? So it can be an effect of fatigue. Yeah, so acute or chronic fatigue, both of them significantly impair your physical and mental performance. So the best way to combat fatigue is to maintain, I was going to say sleep, but okay, apparently it's maintain a high level of physical fitness. Okay, so you're less susceptible to effects of fatigue when you're fit. Okay, so your body's more healthy, you're gonna be less susceptible to feeling those effects of fatigue. This one is maintain a healthy mental attitude. A healthy mental attitude, yes. You're less susceptible to fatigue when you're in a good mood. Okay. Some more here. Maintain a proper diet, hydration, and nutrition. Okay, this kind of improves your resistance to fatigue. Okay, so your body is well fed, and your cells can work properly. And there it is. Okay, adequate rest. Take regular breaks during the day, and get proper sleep at night. Okay, adults need 7 to 8 hours of sleep, and teenagers, assume many of you are teenagers, you guys should get 8 to 9 hours of sleep. Okay, there is something called sleep debt. Okay, and this is not on the slides, but it's important for you guys to know. Sleep debt. Okay, so if you don't get enough sleep every night, let's say you go a week, let's say you're a teenager, you need 8 to 9, but let's say you only get 7 hours of sleep for a week. So you miss 1 hour of sleep every night. After the week, it's not that, oh, I need to get an extra hour of sleep tomorrow. You've now accumulated 7 hours of sleep debt. Okay, sleep debt needs to be repaid. Think of it as like money. You take money out of the bank, you need to repay it. Okay. So inadequate sleep builds up. Okay, and this is why chronic fatigue, you need um you need several long nights of sleep in order to recover from it. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about fatigue? I think yes, we're moving on to the next topic. Okay, no fatigue questions. There it is. Adequate sleep. This is critical. Okay, I think I said all those things. Next is situational awareness. Okay, this is another important one. Okay, situational awareness, I think I said it before, but it's knowing what's going on around you. Okay, so it's the perception of the environment within a volume of time and space, the comprehension of the meaning, and the projection of the effect into the near future. Okay, so in simple terms, it's you knowing what's going on around you, being able to process that in a certain time. Okay, so comprehending what it means and being able to predict that what's going to happen in the future. So let's say you have that master caution warning going off. It's your ability to perceive, okay, it's going off, to understand, okay, this is the master caution warning, and to project, okay, this is going to be an issue. Let's deal with it now. That's situational awareness. Okay, it can also be seeing a plane coming towards you. Okay, being able to see it, comprehend, oh, that's a plane. Oh, it's coming towards me. Let's go the other way, or let's do the maneuvers of the cards or follow your TCAS. Okay, that's sort of what situational awareness is. Okay. Good situational awareness is key to good decision making. Okay, if you don't know what's going on around you, you're not going to be able to make good decisions based on it. Okay, if you don't see the plane coming towards you, well, you're not going to be able to avoid it, right? Maintaining good situational awareness requires work. Okay, proper scanning techniques. Okay, having good sleep, not being fatigued. Okay, this requires work by the pilot. It doesn't just happen by itself. Okay. Situational awareness, observing what's going on around you and knowing how may affect your flight. Okay, I think we've covered that already. This can be referred to as maintaining your air picture. Okay, so keeping that picture in the airplane of what's going on around you. Okay. So here's sort of how the 3 levels of situational awareness. The first level is perception, so what you see and hear. So, hearing that beep, 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 or seeing the plane coming towards you, or seeing that you're running low on fuel, that's perception. Then the next level is comprehension. Okay, so you understand the significance of the situation. So the plane's coming towards me, okay, that's significant. There's like a warning going off, that's significant. Low on fuel, that's significant. Things like that. And also understanding things that are not significant. Okay, so let's say you're running low on fuel, but there's a plane coming towards you. Okay, understanding, what to deal with first. Okay, first let's avoid the plane, then let's deal with our fuel. That's sort of what comprehension is, and then projection. So thinking ahead and anticipating what effect it might have on you. Okay, so the plane, we don't want the plane coming towards us to hit us. Okay, so let's project ahead and let's avoid it. Okay, or the fuel, we don't want to run out of fuel. Let's find a place to land. Okay, that's sort of the last level here. Does anyone have any questions about these levels? Okay, we're going to move on to different types of situational awareness. So there's geographical situational awareness, okay, where you are in relation to the airport, terrain, landmarks. I know for those of you that go on glider, one of the questions that you always get asked when you're on air tow going up is, where's the airport? Okay, as a glider pilot, you need to know where the airport is because that's where the only place you can land. Okay, so that's geographical awareness. There is spatial, okay, so knowing what altitude, attitude, speed, vertical speed, and flight path you're at. So let's say you're in a glider and you're in the practice area, so you're up, flying around, but your vertical speed is like negative 1,000 feet per minute. Okay, that's probably something to realize and say, okay, maybe it's time to head back because we're descending really fast. Okay, so that'd be sort of spatial awareness. There's system awareness, so the status of your aircraft. Again, with the glider, if you're flying around and your canopy like comes open, okay, like being aware that okay, my canopy is open. That's sort of the system awareness. Environmental, so weather, winds. Okay, there's a thunderstorm coming towards me. Hey, the winds on the ground are kind of picking up. We should probably land as soon as possible. Operational, so yeah, again with the example of the plane coming towards us, so where other people are, okay, where there's other traffic, where's the tow plane, okay, where's the other glider, okay, that's kind of operational. And yeah, so then there's different factors that can affect our situational awareness, or it can result in a loss of awareness. Okay, so there's poor situational awareness management. Okay, so again, if you're just kind of like scanning the sky randomly, you're not being situationally aware. Okay, the main thing is look, listen, update. Okay, so look around, listen around, and update regularly. Okay, poor maintenance of priorities. Okay, so again with the fuel and a plane coming towards us, we're low on fuel, and there's a plane coming towards us. If our first priority is to deal with our low fuel, and we forget the plane coming towards us, we're going to get hit. Okay? And that's a poor maintenance of our priorities. Okay? Misdirected, fixated attention. So again, with that, the pilots with their landing light, okay, and they didn't realize that they were running low on fuel and they're going to crash because they're fixated on that broken light. Okay, that's misdirected attention and loss of situational awareness. Okay, distraction by irrelevant stimuli. This is a big one. I remember in my class, it was a human factors class in my university, and I raised my hand to go up and participate in this activity. And I was standing in front of my class, and they had me put on these headphones and like read these different tasks to do. Well, they're like blasting like nonsense in my ears, and everyone was laughing that I wasn't able to do the stuff on the screen. It's because I was being blasted by irrelevant stimuli. Okay, and it lost my situational awareness. Okay, so that's another one. Low workload. Okay, so surprisingly, if you don't have enough stuff to do, you can be less situationally aware. Okay, if you're kind of just like sitting there, not doing anything, and suddenly there's like something happening, okay, and you kind of just like want to stay in your relaxed state. That's what complacency is, and that's how you lose situational awareness. Okay, or high workload. Okay, so if you're bombarded with like different stuff that you need to do, like okay, I need to write down my clearance, I need to configure my aircraft, I need to do my landing checks, I need to make sure my passenger's okay. Okay, you're doing all this stuff and you don't have time to look that the plane is coming towards you, or that oh my fuel is running low. Okay, so high workload can also cause a loss of situational awareness. Are there any questions about situational awareness, fatigue, or the illusions that we've talked about in this class? No questions? Okay, so we can go to some confirmation questions. So what is situational awareness? Yes, Cadet Anderson.
Being aware of your surroundings.
Yeah, so the definition it has here is the perception of the environment within a volume of space and time, the comprehension of the meaning, and the projection into the future. Okay, but as you said it, yeah, it's just being aware of what's happening around you. Okay, what are the 3 levels of situational awareness? Cadet, let's see, Cadet Poitras.
The first step is perception of like what you see and hear. The second step is comprehension, and then the third step is projection.
Yeah, that's right. So first step is to perceive what's going on. Second step is to like understand like what you're seeing, and the next step is to project. Okay, this is going to be an issue in the future. What is the visual scanning technique? Cadet Hassan.
First you have to like break up the sky into different sections, like left, right, up, and down.
Yeah.
Then you have to like focus on one area and like make sure there's nothing there. And then you like move on and make sure like the whole sky is clear.
Yeah, that's correct. All right. And what are the sensory illusions? I think we talked about 3 of them. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, there's 3 of them. No, sorry, 4. The 4 sensory illusions. Cadet Schmoss.
Geographical, century, geographical, spatial, system, and environmental.
Right. Yeah, so there's the some somatographic illusions, okay? So that's an acceleration, deceleration one. There's a vestibular. So this is the turning illusion. There's the Coriolis, so this is the rapid movement, and then there's the visual ones. Okay. What are some visual illusions? So let's say I have a wide runway. Okay, what is my illusion going to be, and what is my compensation going to be? Cadet Hassan.
You're gonna think that you're low to the ground, because it's wider, so you're gonna compensate by flying higher.
Hey, correct. So yeah, wide runway, we're going to feel too low, okay, and the result is that going to be that we're going in too high. All right, so I have an activity if you guys want to do it. If not, we can go for a break. The activity does require someone to volunteer to participate. So if anyone wants to volunteer. All right, Cadet Hassan, thank you. So this is going to be activity. We're going to be looking at situational awareness, okay, and how to kind of high workload can cause us to lose our situational awareness or cause us to impair our performance. Okay, so Cadet Hassan, if you're comfortable with turning on your mic, basically you're going to get some like tasks here. Okay, you're going to read it for the amount of time, and then when I go to the next slide and say go, you're going to like go through the tasks that I give you. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and no cheating. So no like taking photo of it and looking at it. Okay. So I'll give you 10 seconds to read through that. Okay. And when I say go, then you can do that task. Okay.
Okay.
All right, go.
Alberta, Ontario, Saskatchewan, Newfoundland and Labrador, and Quebec.
All right. Next, I'm gonna give you a slide and you're gonna have to read through everything. Okay, for the amount of time. So read through those things.
Okay.
And when it says go, you're gonna go. All right, go.
Newfoundland, Labrador, Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, NASSAH.
All right, we're gonna do it again. So read through those things. All right, go.
Newfoundland, Labrador, Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, NASSAH, chronic and acute fatigue, and I forget the last step.
Yeah. So as you see, higher workload, less time. Okay? We sort of kind of lose that awareness. Okay, we're not able to remember things correctly. And yeah, so this is how high workload can affect our situational awareness. I was actually confident that we were going to get through that one, so I even made a next one, but that's okay. So yeah. Oh, you actually made through all of them. So that's good. And there wasn't actually a last one, so that's interesting. Anyways, so that was our activity. So you can kind of see how situational awareness can be impaired by high workload. Okay. So why don't we take a break for 10 minutes and once all right guys, we're in the last stretch here. We're gonna get started on the last lesson for today, which is Aeromed 3, or what's this, aviation physiology? Yeah, so Aeromed 3. This will be our last one for today. That's me, 40 minutes. Sounds good. All right. So in this lesson, we're going to basically cover the rest of the factors that could affect the way you're flying. Yeah, so same as before, you guys should know these. They could impair your ability to function in the cockpit. And at some point, your life could depend on knowing this material. Okay, so in this lesson, we're going to start with hypothermia and hyperthermia. We're going to move on to alcohol and drugs and sort of the regulations around that, anesthetics and blood donation, and then lastly, effects of smoking. Okay, so hypothermia and hyperthermia. Isn't the last message airframes? No, we're doing Aeromed 3 today. I think airframes will be your next lesson. Yeah, next week probably. Okay, so hypothermia versus hyperthermia. Um, so hypothermia means the lowering of core body temperature. Okay, so your body is too cold. I'm sure some of you in the Northwest area, I don't know if you guys have experienced hypothermia. Anytime I step outside here in the wintertime, I get really cold. But hypothermia is severe cold. Okay, this is prolonged exposure to cold temperatures. Yeah, this is usually associated with survival situations. So if you're flying in the wintertime or up north and you're forced to land in like a cold place and you're stuck there, you could experience hypothermia. Or if you land in cold water. Okay. The hazards include impaired physical and mental function. Okay, and eventually you have organ failure and can lose your life because of hypothermia. Okay. So the initial symptoms, are you going to feel cold, first of all? You're going to have pale, waxy skin, fatigue, and uncontrollable and intense shivering. Okay, and yeah, so I'm not sure about airframes. They just asked me to cover Aeromed 1, 2, and 3 um, in the email I got. So I can bring it up and perhaps I'll cover it next week. But I only have Aeromed prepared for this week. Okay. Um, Advanced symptoms, you start to feel clumsy. Um, you can have apathy and mental confusion. You can start to breathe slower, and eventually you'll get loss of consciousness. Okay. Next slide. Okay, so how do you prevent hypothermia? The best way is to delay the onset, so to keep yourself warm. So dress for the weather, and carry the appropriate survival equipment. Okay, so here's my flying hat. I always take it in the wintertime when I go flying, just in case it keeps me nice and warm. Okay, dress in layers that are warm and that will stay dry. So like a nice parka and maybe some thermals. Wear a hat and gloves when flying in the winter. Seek shelter out of the wind and in a dry area, and also build a fire. So if you guys have done survival training, this is when building a fire could be useful. Okay. We talked about cold, so now we're going to talk about heat. Okay, so there's heat injuries. So obviously, if you burn yourself, exposure to high temperatures or continuous sun exposure, um, this can be a hazard. Okay, so when you go on glider, I know when I was on glider, we're outside in the sun, maybe 8 hours, 12 hours a day. Okay, that's a hazard. Okay, especially when it's 35 degrees and there's like no clouds and it's a nice sunny day, and you're running around. Okay, this can be a hazard for you. Okay, you can have heat rash, sunburn, heat cramps, heat exhaustion, and heat stroke. Okay, and that's hyperthermia, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, when I was on glider, we were outside in the sun all day, and it could be very tiring. Um, yeah, it could be very tiring being outside in the sun all day. Um, so hyperthermia is an uncontrolled rise of the core body temperature. So it's the opposite of hypothermia. And again, it's caused by high temperatures or prolonged exposure to hot sunlight conditions. Okay. Um, the hazards are discomfort and pain. Okay, so when you're too hot, you can start to feel uncomfortable. You can start to get confused, irrational behavior, organ damage, and death. Okay, so same outcome as hypothermia there. Okay, so hyperthermia has a progressive onset. So the symptoms will develop gradually over time. So at first, you go outside, okay, it's a nice sunny day, nice and warm, okay, and you start to sort of feel tired, sweat, you maybe notice that you're getting a bit thirsty, okay, and then it sort of moves into, okay, I'm getting dizzy, okay, I need to take a seat or I need to go find some shade, okay. Heat exhaustion, okay, you can get cramps, especially in the larger muscles, so the legs. So if you're running around all day and it's really hot, you can start to get cramps. You start to get a headache. Okay? Muscle weakness is another one. So you start to feel weak, nausea, vomiting, stomach cramps, and fainting. So if you're outside in the sun too much, you could faint. Heat stroke. This is when your body stops sweating to preserve the remaining fluid, so you don't have enough water. So your body's trying to preserve all the liquid it has, and you're going to stop sweating. This will give you hot and dry skin. Okay? Again, confusion and irrational behavior. You can have convulsions or seizures, and then there's a loss of consciousness. Okay? So, how do we prevent hyperthermia? Know the symptoms and monitor yourself. Okay. If you're at glider and you're running around all day, okay, and you start to feel dizzy, lightheaded, okay, you notice you're starting to sweat a bit less, okay, know the symptoms, okay, and keep monitoring yourself. Okay. So if you have to take a seat in the shade, go take a seat in the shade. Okay. No one's gonna get mad at you because it's too hot. Okay. Buddy system, have someone keep an eye out for you. Okay. So you might not notice these symptoms in yourself, but if someone sees you kind of struggling or notices that you're looking tired, okay, have them tell you to, go take a seat in the shade. Drink water even if you don't feel thirsty. Okay, take breaks out of the sun when you're outside all day. Watch your urine output. Okay, so you should have a pale yellow urine. A dark or amber is not a good sign. Okay, so that means you should drink more water and take a break. Okay. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about hyperthermia, hypothermia, or anything related to those? Yes, Cadet Hassan.
Um, heat exhaustion and heat stroke can both lead to fainting and like loss of consciousness. How do you know like which is which?
Yeah, so if we look at the symptoms here, heat exhaustion is more like cramps, headache, and muscle weakness. So it's sort of like your body is tired from being in the heat. Heat stroke is more of you don't have enough liquid or enough water. So you're going to get more of like the hot and dry skin, the confusion and irrational behavior. And yeah, I hope you don't have any seizures, but that can also be a symptom.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, no questions. So I guess we'll move on to alcohol. Okay, so alcohol consumption by pilots is a factor in approximately 10% of all fatal aircraft accidents, which is actually quite sad because this is very preventable. Pilots who fly under the influence of alcohol can suffer from a variety of impairments. Okay, so drunk driving, drunk flying, both are not good things. Okay, this is a serious risk when flying, especially due to impaired judgment, impaired balance, impaired coordination, spatial disorientation, increased reaction time, channelized attention, euphoria, and false sense of performance. Okay, so alcohol will do all these things to you. Okay, you're gonna have impaired judgment. You're not gonna judge properly. Okay, balance. You sort of see people that maybe have had too much to drink, kind of like wobbling around. Coordination comes along with that. Spatial disorientation. Hey, they don't know what's going on around them. Okay, increased reaction time. If you ask someone that's had too much to drink to like say the alphabet, it's going to take them a while. Channelized attention. So you maybe start to fixate on some things, and then yeah, you just feel good. You know, you're doing a good job. Not the best when we're flying. Okay, the cars, of course, there's rules and regulations for this. You cannot fly as a crew member if you're under the influence of alcohol. Okay, so fortunately, you don't have to know like the 0.8 or whatever when it comes to driving. It's just no alcohol in the blood. Okay, so it's a zero tolerance. And if you have consumed any alcohol in the previous 12 hours, you cannot fly. Okay, this number used to be 8, but now it's 12. Okay, so 12 hours from the saying is 12 hours from bottle to throttle, okay, or from bottle to all out. Okay, you can't fly 12 hours after even taking a sip of alcohol legally. Okay, does anyone have any questions about that? I think that's pretty straightforward. Okay, there is different ACGP requirements. So if you're going to go gliding, this is not required for you to know for any exam or anything for now. So yeah, here's the most ACGP one. Oops. And this is the cadet gliding program. It's for 12 hours again, but you can't report for duty, so you can't show up to the site 8 hours after drinking. Yeah. So medications, there's prescription medications and there's over-the-counter. I think you guys all know what's the difference between those. So it's not legal for you to act as a crew member, so to go flying or when you're under the influence of medication that can impair your ability to fly. Okay. Now there's different exceptions when it comes to what's on your medical certificate and what your CAMI has approved you to take. But the general rule is if there's a drug that will impair any ability for you to fly and you haven't consulted your your aviation doctor about it, you cannot fly if you're taking that drug. Okay. Um, there's different lists when it comes to this. I think the FAA has a whole list of drugs that you can't take while you're flying. It may be different for Transport Canada, but here's the general rule. Okay, watch out for any medications ending in amine. Okay, acetaminophen is safe. So Tylenol, you can have Tylenol, but Advil is a no-go. So no Advil, and then going flying. Okay. Don't mix your medications. Don't mix medications with alcohol. Okay, that just doubles the effects. If the bottle says don't operate heavy machinery, then don't operate heavy machinery. Okay, don't go flying. Um, Non-drowsy formulations of OTCs are not necessarily acceptable, as they typically have the same depressive effect mitigated through the use of caffeine. Okay, so non-drowsy over-the-counter ones, don't do them or don't take them and go flying. Okay. See what else. If you self-medicate with an over-the-counter, don't fly for 48 hours after you stop taking the medication. Okay. Because you're not a doctor and you might not know what's in it. Okay, as a general rule, don't self-medicate. Okay, check with your aviation medical examiner first. Okay, you guys all know what a CAMI is and all the medical stuff, right? You guys have covered that already. Perfect. All right. Does anyone have any questions about medications or alcohol? Okay, we're going to move on to immunizations. So I'm sure many of you have gotten the flu shot before, your COVID vaccines, all that stuff. Yeah. So pilots should just follow the general rule, okay? Remain at the clinic for the 15 to 30 minutes after the immunization to make sure it doesn't have any effect on you, okay? Or however long they recommend that you wait there for. Yeah, I think after you get your COVID shot, you got to sit there for 15 minutes to make sure that everything's okay. So that's the rule still follows. If the pilot feels well and there's no evidence that anything is going wrong, then you can go flying right away. Okay, there's nothing restricting you. But if you feel unwell and there is an adverse reaction, then you should wait for 24 hours and then be assessed by a healthcare provider before you start flying. Okay? So yeah, if you feel well, just wait for a day, get it looked at, and then you can go flying again if everything's okay. Okay, we're going to move on to anesthetics and blood donation. Okay, this is another thing that you should know as a pilot. So you're prohibited from flying 24 hours after receiving a local anesthetic of any kind. So does everyone know what a local anesthetic is? You guys can type in the chat if you know or not. Yeah, so local anesthetic means that you're getting anesthetized in like a specific area. So when a dentist comes and like gives you an injection to like put a filling in or take out a tooth, that's local. Okay, when they freeze like some part of your mouth, so, okay, that's a local anesthetic. Okay, so if you get any of those, you should wait 24 hours. Yeah, you should wait 24 hours before going flying. Thank you, Cadet. See you again. Okay, so yeah, local anesthetic numbs a local area. Normally an injection, sometimes topical, okay, commonly used by dentists, fillings, or when you get stitches or like a minor surgery. Okay. Um, General anesthetics, so there's local and there's general. General anesthetics, this is when they put you under. Okay, so you get the gas on and you fall asleep. Okay. This is typically used for more complicated medical procedures. Um, And after these, you cannot fly until you're cleared to fly by your CAMI. So I have a story actually last year. I was waiting to do my PPL flight test because I didn't do it with cadets. I did it in my program. And I had to take my wisdom teeth out. I didn't know that they were going to put me under. But they put me under. And the next morning I woke up and I had my flight test 5 days later. So I actually had to call and cancel it because I couldn't get uh, a booking with my cami until like the next week. So yeah, you do need to wait until you're cleared by your cami after being put under for any surgery. Okay, I hope that makes sense. I think it's pretty clear. Okay, so blood donations now. You cannot fly for 48 hours after donating blood. Okay, and this goes back to what we talked about before of hypoxia. Well, we don't have enough blood in our body. What kind of hypoxia can we experience? You guys can type in the chat. The rule for regional anesthetics, I think that falls under the local one. So you should wait 24 hours. And always, if unsure, talk to your cami. Okay. So yeah, does anyone know um, what kind of hypoxia we can experience by not having enough blood? Not hypoxic. Not quite. Yeah, anemic. Okay. So, yeah, it's anemic. So, anemic hypoxia is when our blood either refuses or cannot take the oxygen. okay, or there's not enough blood, to absorb all the oxygen. So after we donate blood, we all of a sudden have this loss of blood in our system. Okay, and if we go flying, we might experience that anemic hypoxia. Okay, so you cannot fly under the law for 48 hours after donating blood. Okay, and this is for pilots, not for passengers. You can donate blood and go be a passenger just fine. Okay, so yeah, this puts you at elevated risk of anemic hypoxia, um, and reduced blood cell. Okay, there's components. Okay, yeah. So yeah, regeneration of these red blood cells can take 24 to 48 hours, which is why we need to wait the 2 days. Okay, does anyone have any questions about anesthetics, blood donations, or anything like that? Okay, yeah, best to just know the different types of anesthetics. So the two types you need to know is local and general, okay, and then the amount of time that you need to wait and what you need to do before you can go flying. And then for blood donations, just know the amount of time. Again, with the ACGP, we have more stringent requirements. So if I go back, I think this slide was here somewhere. Here it is. So if you're gonna ever fly for the cadet program and do gliding, you need to wait 72 hours after blood donation, okay, instead of 48. But for your exam, all you need to know is the 48. All right. Okay, so we're gonna move on to our last topic now, which is smoking. Okay. I hope none of you smoke, but if you do, then nicotine is going to be inhaled into your lungs, and this gets absorbed by the blood, which has an immediate and bad impact on your performance. Okay, so this reduces your respiratory efficiency. Okay, so this results in reduced oxygenation of the body tissues. So again, with hypoxia, you're getting less oxygen to your cells, and this causes reduced performance. Okay, and again, this can be caused by smoking or vaping. Okay, the issue is the nicotine. So either smoking or vaping can cause this. It's not isolated to smoking. This gives you an increased risk for anemic and histotoxic hypoxia. So again, histotoxic is the one with the cell is not able to take the oxygen, and that's due to the drugs, nicotine, and stuff like that. And then anemic, well, we covered that one. It's the blood not being able to take the oxygen into the red blood cells. Okay. Smoking can cause reduced visual acuity, especially at altitudes above 5,000. Okay. So again, with the hypoxia, above 5,000 feet is when you start to notice reduced visual function because of the reduced pressure, because of the hypoxia. If this is combined with anemic and histotoxic, then you start to really notice the reduced visual acuity. Okay. This is especially important when flying at nighttime because at nighttime we rely on our night vision in our eyes. And above 5,000 feet, it gets really reduced. Okay? Even if you're a smoker, it gets reduced a lot. So this is especially important and for you to know if you are a smoker and you fly. Here it is. Significant impairment to your night vision. Okay, and this is because of the hypoxia. Okay, smoking and vaping are also proven to have long-term adverse effects on your health. Okay, increased risk of cardiovascular problems, heart attack, stroke, and cancer. I'm sure you guys have all learned this before. Smoking is not good. Vaping is not good as well. And as pilots, our jobs are, or your license is medical dependent, right? You need to have a medical to fly. So if you're a smoker and you're a vapor, just know that these issues can lead to you losing your medical in the future, which in turn comes with your license. Okay. Consuming nicotine in any way, smoking, vaping, chewing, all have the same effects. Okay, the issue is the nicotine. All right. Does anyone have any questions about smoking? I think this one is pretty clear and enforced. Okay, so we'll go on to some confirmation questions. How long do we have to wait to fly after having an immunization? Let's say everything is fine, there's no adverse effects. Cadet, who is the first one there? Cadet Lee,
24 hours.
24, no, not quite. 24 hours is if we notice something is wrong, right? After we notice something is wrong after having immunization, we should wait 24 hours and then consult a health professional before flying. So what if everything is fine and I get immunization? Cadet Hassan.
If everything's okay, then you can fly immediately.
Yeah, if everything's okay, you wait the 15, 30 minutes that they recommend, and then you're good to go. Okay. Next one. How long should you wait after receiving a general anesthetic? So remember, there's local and there's general. How long should we wait after having the general? Cadet Anderson.
Until you get approved by your CAMI for flight.
Okay, until you get approved by your CAMI. Sounds great. Yeah, and then the local one is the 24 hours. Okay, so local, like if your dentist gives you a shot to like numb your teeth, that's 24 hours. General, gotta get it approved first. Okay, how long must you wait to fly after consuming alcohol? Cadet Singh.
Is it 12 hours?
Yeah, 12 hours. 12 hours from bottle to throttle, right? It used to be 8, and if you're having like an old FTG or something, it will say 8, but just know that now it's 12 hours, okay? After consuming any sort of alcohol. If you have a headache, what medication can you take that won't prevent you from flying? There's one. Cadet Schmoss. Cadet Schmoss. Not sure if I'm saying your name correctly. Okay, we go to Cadet Fortress.
You cannot take any medication that ends in enemy, and I think that
Amine.
was Tylenol. That you
Yeah.
can. That's the only one you can take.
Yeah, Tylenol is good to take. At least that's what it says here. Advil is one that you might think that you could take, but actually no, you can't. You can't take Advil and go fly because it thins your blood. Okay. How long should you wait after donating blood to fly, or how long do you have to wait? Cadet Anderson.
I believe it's 48 hours, but for the cadet program, 72.
Yeah, 48 hours under the law, 72 for the cadet program. For your guys' exam or test, just know at 48. Okay, that's what I need to know. All right, that's it for Aeromed 3. I'm not sure if I was supposed to cover airframes because it only gave me 3 topics for today. But I guess if you guys want, we can take a look at that since we have time. You can give me a thumbs up or a hands up if you guys want to go over airframes. All right, sure. You guys might go over it like in a next week or something. Let's see. I'm not even sure if the presentation is up yet. Let's see. Let's go to the SharePoint. General. Review. Oh, it should be here actually. Here it is. All right, airframes and systems. And sorry, what was the lecture supposed to cover here? Yeah, the other lectures only cover Aeromed. So I guess if you guys want to go, you can go. that would be it for today. But if for those who want to do airframes, we can look at the lecture. I'm sure you'll cover it in the next week or something. Oh, actually, there's no lecture up for airframes yet, so I guess that's it for today then. So I'll just stop sharing my screen. Yeah, thanks everyone for coming out. Again, the stuff that I said to memorize, or that I said like should be memorized, probably a good idea to memorize that. If you guys still have questions, I'll answer them now actually. Okay. 4 chapters for class. Yeah, I assume that since the classes were 40 minutes long, that they only did 3, because yeah, they only asked me to do 3 with you guys. So that's all I have. Did I do glider with Darji? Yes, I did. If you know him, we did glider together. What meds ending in? So yeah, meds ending in amine, AMINE are generally not advisable to take. Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions about today's lecture stuff or today's lesson stuff? Aeromed. Okay. If there's no other questions, it's been a pleasure teaching you guys. Yes, it should be posted on the training resources. I'm pretty sure. Yes, it's been a pleasure teaching you guys. Again, this is in chapter 11. The stuff is all on SharePoint, or I'm sure will get uploaded eventually. I think this recording will be uploaded as well. But yeah, have a great evening, afternoon, and maybe I'll see you guys again for another lesson. Thanks, everyone.